Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gamel's Facebook Live. For today, have you been to the quilt show yet? It's the last day. I want to get there real quick if you haven't been there, or you haven't been back to check all the winners. And also, this is our last morning Facebook Live. We will be just going to only afternoons starting tomorrow, and that's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time, or whatever it might be in your time zone. It's not my time zone. But be watching. We're going to have all sorts of cool things continuing. Lots of learning, lots of fun things. For those of you who don't know me, I'm DeAnn Perrigo. I live in Camas, Washington in the Pacific Northwest, down by the Columbia River. And I'm one of the educators for Gamel. And today we're going to be talking about batting. There is so many different kinds of batting out there. Let's figure out what's going to be right for your particular project. So let's start by looking at the different companies. There are a lot of companies. There are 4 that I like a lot, that I know personally about, that I've used their products and I like them, and I know that your dealers carry some or all of them. So you do need to check with your dealer. They are going to be probably your best bet at where to get batting, either in bulk or in smaller amounts. Definitely get to know your dealer and what they carry. The ones that I carry, and I carry quite a variety. The brands that I carry are Warm Company. Warm Company carries Warm and Natural, which is their cotton, warm and white, like this, that is been bleached. They carry a polyester. This is soft and bright. They also carry Insul Bright. So if you're making hot pads or something that need to protect from heat, that's a good option. I also carry Hobbs. I like the Hobbs Tuscany brand. They have more than just that. That's just the one that I prefer. I know a lot of people like their 80-20. That's a really popular weight of 100% cotton. I carry their Tuscany unbleached, and I carry their bleached. I also carry their cotton wool blend. Oh, that is lovely. And they're 100% wool. A lot of people who do wall hangings or heirloom quilting, show quilts, they like to have wool in because it poofs up and it shows off the stitching very well. There's also a couple other brands. I have Legacy by Pellon, and they have a polyester that it just has this beautiful drape that I really enjoy. And I also like their black because it's a 70-30 blend, 70% cotton, 30% polyester. I happen to like that. A lot of people carry the Quilter's Dream Batting. I don't carry it. I love working with it though. It is just beautiful. They not only do they have the cottons and poly and wool, they also have a couple different ones. They also have a silk. You know, I haven't used silk yet, but it is so soft, and I'm told it's really warm. I am looking forward to playing with that. They also have a green batting that is recycled bottles. I can only imagine how lovely that would be if you had a picnic quilt that you take out and you know it's going to get wet sitting on the grass. It's probably not going to have any problem with molds and mildews and anything like that if you don't throw it in the washer right away. So that's another good option. Quilter's Dream, lovely, lovely stuff to work with. But when I'm looking at the different types and why would I carry both an unbleached in the Hobbs Tuscany and an unbleached cotton with the Warm Company, why would I have them both? Well, that's one of the differences with them is one is size. The Hobbs is a 96 inches wide. So it might be a quilt just needs that extra couple inches, and therefore this is just going to quickly and easily take care of that. But it also might depend on what you want for your drape, how it flows over the side of a bed, and whether you're going to curl up under it or if you want it to sit nice and stiff. 2 different things, 2 different products. And one of the ways that it is made so that it has that different feel is the warm company uses scrim. And if you look at this, if I pull on this, it does not have very much pull either direction. That's because it has scrim, and scrim is like a grid that when they needle punching is similar to what you do to make felt, lots and lots of needles punching the cotton to make it a smooth and consistent height. Well, they do that with that grid and punch it into that grid. And what that does is it's a polyester in that grid, in that scrim, and it retains its shape. It's going to remain smooth and constant. You're not going to pull it out of shape or anything. So you can do a couple things with that. One is probably not going to shrink as much because it's got the poly grid holding it in its place. And it's also going to allow you to quilt farther apart. So instead of needing to make sure that you quilt no farther than 4 inches apart, you can do it a little bit bigger. And that's nice when you want something that is just cuddly and drapey. Whereas if you want to use something that does not have a scrim, one of the things that we can do is when I hold it up, if I pull it, it's going to stretch out of shape. It's not going to retain that, and you do not want to pre-wash this at all, because if you do, without that scrim, it's going to come out of your dryer in a wad. So no pre-washing on this. But the nice thing is, it's also, once you do wash it in your quilt, if you do not pre-wash your fabric, they should shrink it approximate, and use cotton of course, they'll shrink it approximately the same amount, and therefore you won't have that puffy look. But if you like that vintage puffy look, that's when you will pre-wash your fabrics, not pre-wash your batting, and then it will all fill and poof and crinkle and give you that vintage look. So it's whatever is going to be suitable to the project that you're working on. But what about the polyesters? What makes the difference between them? Polys and wools all need some sort of a bonding in order to get them to stay together, since they're not using scrim and they're not needle punched like the cottons are. They use a couple different ways. Some companies will use a resin that they will put and dunk everything in and then assemble it and run it through an oven, and it on low temperature, and it cooks it and makes it all nice and solid and together. And some, what I read on the Hobbs, I think it was the Hobbs website, is that or is it Dream Cotton? I don't remember. I've been reading both of them real detailed. They have a different process that is a thermal bonding, where they use fibers, polyester fibers, and they melt them again at a very low temperature, just enough to hold everything together. So different ways of putting them together, and the different ways they do that also determine if you're going to have a more stiff poly or a more flexible poly. We also have different sizes of poly, because we have the thinner polys, and then I have this bag of poly. This is super duper thick. The designer wanted it for a duvet and then changed her mind. So I have this big thing of extra high loft poly, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but it could be a lot of fun to work with. And so when we're looking at all these, we know a little bit about why they're made. How do we choose what's going to be right for my project? Oftentimes, the first thing that I do is I look at the size of the project and what batting do I have that's going to be the right size. Because if it's a king size quilt, I've got some choices to make. I carry 120 by 120 in the Hobbs, but what if I need 122? I do have 124 inch that warm and white comes in. that may be what I need. Smaller ones, maybe not. But those are some of the first things I have to ask the customer, what is going to fit your project? And then we start scaling back to, okay, what color? Do we need bleached or is unbleached okay? Do we need black? So that's the next choice that we make. And then we start whittling it down to, okay, now what are you going to use it for? Is it going to be a baby quilt that you want it all soft and cuddly? Or is it going to be something on the wall like this one? Because if you're hanging it on the wall, you're going to have some different requirements. You're going to want it to be a little bit poofy so that you can see the quilting as well as the piecing. You're going to want it to be able to retain its shape and not sag over time. And you may want it to be foldable to go, if it's only, say, a Christmas quilt, you want to put it away part of the year. So the options on those are, do I want cotton? Cotton will leave fold marks and it will sag a little bit over time. So probably not the top of my list unless my customer is very insistent on she wants everything cotton. And that's okay too. But maybe a polyester. Polyester, the polys are less expensive. They can do a lot. The one that I just showed you on the wall actually has 2 layers of poly. And it quilted beautifully. But if it's going to be a show quilt that's hanging, maybe it's a better option to put a cotton and then a wool on top. What that's going to do is the cotton on the bottom is going to push all of the quilting to the top, and it'll go through that wool and give lovely definition. So knowing what the project is and how you want it to look and how you want it to feel is really important. And to do that, what I have done for my customers is I have taken all the different kinds of batting I carry, cut it into a square and made this little pillow, and then I labeled it and put it in the washer and dryer so that they can feel what it's like both before it's been washed and after. Because some of them, like the Soft and Bright, feels really stiff until you wash it and then it softens up. Well, so where it's really good stiff on a wall quilt, it will still soften up if you put it through the washer and want to use it on your bed. So I have a whole variety of these things. I think I'd like to do them again with some quilting on as well so that my customers can see how the quilting shows up when that particular batting is used. So one more project for me to do here in the near future. So what else? The loft, the fiber, the drape, all those different things play into how the quilt's going to look. But I bet you have a couple questions on what is bearding. I thought I'd preempt those questions by answering a few that I've always had. Bearding is where you see the fibers come out through the fabric when you are quilting them. What causes that? Bearding can be caused by a couple things. One of the most common things is if you have a fabric that is more loosely woven. So you're more likely to get that on printed fabric or a lesser quality fabric than, say, a batik that's very tightly woven. Another major cause of that is you need a new needle, because we can get little burrs on our needles that we don't even notice until we turn that quilt over and we can see the bearding. Needles are not expensive. I change my needle often. Sometimes in a large quilt, I may even change it more than once if I hear or see any changes, because I may have done something to it, or just maybe that particular needle wasn't very good to begin with. That happens occasionally, but just change them out regularly. Another thing that can cause that is the tightness of your quilt on the long arm. If you are pulling it too tight with your pickup and your belly bar, whichever backing or top that you're using, whichever one of those you use, if you're pulling them too tight, then you're separating those fibers and allowing it to go through as well. Pokies are similar. Pokies are where the fibers come out in little balls on the back. Those same things can cause that as well. Plus, if you're using too large of a needle and it leaves an open hole, that can cause it as well. Is it caused though by putting batting the right side or wrong side down? I know that's a big question. Some people refer to these as pimples and dimples. Pimples and dimples. Which one goes up, which one goes down? For the most part, it really isn't going to matter. Most people, however, if you're using a cotton such as this one that has been needle punched, my preference is to put it on the quilt in the same direction my needle will go in as the needles that punched it. So I have the dimples on top because that's the direction that they went down. Does it make a difference on bearding or pokies? I haven't found the difference because, like I said, for me the difference has been the how closely woven the fabric is and whether or not my needle's good. But that's just me. It's always worth giving it a try and figuring out when it does happen what could have caused that. So, Brad.
Janet would like to know when and why would you use black batting?
Black batting is really helpful if you have a quilt that is black fabric and you know that the fabric is not a really tightly woven one, so that when you're looking at the quilt that it will not give any shadowing underneath. Any more questions?
That was it.
That was it. So, like I said, your dealers know a ton about what they carry and why they carry them, and they carry good quality brands because it doesn't make any sense to spend a whole lot of money, a whole lot of time in maybe even taking a class and learning how to do something. You put all that quality and time and money into your quilt top and then put in a batting that is not going to give it the look that you want. So, real important, batting is a very important part of your quilt. And I thank you. Thanks for spending some time with me, and thank you for spending some time going to the quilt show if you've had the opportunity. And thanks, Brad, for helping out. I appreciate it. So I will talk to y'all later. If you have questions, keep putting them on, and I will answer them throughout the day. Thank you. Bye.